I'm continuing my look at the Kasparov-Anand World Championship match played in New York 1995. Kasparov, the reigning world champion, against Anand, the challenger. It was Anand's first World Championship match. If you recall, the first 8 games were drawn, and then Anand won in game 9, and there were big rumours that Kasparov was having great difficulties. A couple of things were going on. Apparently he was going through a rather messy divorce. Can't have been easy for him. But also he was heavily involved in chess politics and trying to find sponsors as well for the PCA, Professional Chess Association. And, there were a lot of people who were thinking, perhaps this is the moment when Kasparov, who before then had really reigned supreme, was going to come unstuck against the new generation. Let's see what happened in game 10. Remember, Kasparov is 1 down in the match. Now, it went into a Spanish, and this was exactly the same as game 6, where Anand played an open Spanish. There we go. So Anand repeated this. Now, with hindsight, this is a very risky variation to repeat because it is so sharp, so theoretical, and leads to such complex positions. The high point of the open Spanish was probably when Viktor Korchnoi used it as his main weapon against Anatoly Karpov in their 1978 match in Baguio. They had lots of amazing games, very, very complex games. And Kasparov is playing, you could say, the main line here. It's already a very unbalanced position. White has this pawn majority on the king side, and if things go well, then often you can use this pawn majority to launch an attack on black's king. Now it's unbalanced because on the other side of the board you can see that black has pawn majority. And of course, if he can advance that or just claim control of the centre, that can be very interesting indeed. Also, black's knight is on a very nice central square, and white has to deal with this really before he manages to get any kind of attack going. I think there is one serious problem with black's position, is this knight on c6 blocks that pawn on c7. Of course, black would love to advance that pawn to this square, then you'd have a beautiful pawn storm. But yeah, that knight on c6, a little bit misplaced sometimes. Okay, let's see what happens. So Anand played knight c5. It's the main move, and this is all as in game 6. And here, well, there's Anand plays the main move, which is pawn to d4. In recent years, Short has experimented a couple of times with this move, which is perhaps worth investigation. That's interesting. Anyway, we can't go into too much detail. d4. Now, in the Karpov-Korchnoi match that I just mentioned, Karpov played this and was successful on one occasion. They played this, I think, certainly more than once. And I think this is more pleasant for white to play than black. The knight reaches a very nice square in the middle of the board. Okay, this is a nice blockading knight as well, but it's certainly quite a pleasant position for white to play. So white could do that, but it can be a little bit dry. Pieces can be exchanged. But in that Karpov-Korchnoi match, Baguio, 1978, Karpov played this move in one game, an extraordinary move. This was rumoured to be discovered by Mikhail Tal, the great former world champion, of course the late Mikhail Tal, who had such an incredible tactical eye for extraordinary moves such as this. I mean, this must have come as such a thunderbolt to Korchnoi. Incredibly, in the one game that it was played in that match, Korchnoi actually managed to survive and made a draw. Well, the first thing we should look at is queen takes knight. this can be met by queen here, and this pin is, of course, the problem. The knight can't move, the rook will be en prise. Now, it is actually possible for black to play like this, and castle's queenside has actually become established as the main line. You give the piece back, and, well, you get extraordinary complications. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail. We'd be here all day. But that, at the moment, that's kind of the main line. But Anand played as Korchnoi did and took here. Kasparov exchanged off knight for bishop and recaptured on c3, and now queen d3. All Karpov, Korchnoi, Baggio 78 being played before, and there Karpov played knight f3, and they reached an endgame where, well, probably white is slightly better, but Korchnoi managed to hold a draw. In game 6 of this Kasparov-Anand match, Anand castled on the queen side, and Kasparov played queen e1. They had a very sharp game indeed that was eventually drawn. But I guess Anand would have been ready for that. So, here is the critical moment. It's very interesting. Kasparov looked like a kind of a caged bull. He was kind of sitting at the board hunched and not looking at Anand like this, and it was as though steam was coming out of his ears. I mean, there was kind of no one Mr. Nice Guy today. Before this game, he'd actually been very friendly with Anand and seemed like they had good relations, but today he came in and he was slamming the door of the booth where they were playing. They were playing in this soundproofed booth at the top of one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center, and it was meant to be soundproof. The crowd could look in. It was like they were in this goldfish bowl. It was very strange. It was meant to be soundproof, but apparently it wasn't. And when the crowd got very vocal, and the players could hear very well what was going on. Anyway, Kasparov was in a steaming mood, and he was banging out his moves. And this one, he banged out instantly. Apparently they discovered, well, let's see what they discovered in a second. Vishy has to take this pawn, really. If the queen retreats, then the problem is there's the opportunity to check on h5. So you have to take this pawn. You have to go all in. And this was the move that Kasparov banged out instantly. And apparently this game was played on a Tuesday, and they discovered this on the Friday and had the whole weekend to research this move before playing this. It's not clear which one of Kasparov's team discovered this, but, well, they did a brilliant piece of preparation. I think Black's problem now is that it's very hard to back down. There's really no turning back. After this game, several people attempted rook d8 here, but this is also extremely unpleasant. White gets an absolutely raging initiative here. You can see queen here, and all white pieces are in play, and with the king stuck in the middle, it's absolutely dreadful. So Vishy thought for 45 minutes and took the rook. Sorry, he didn't take the rook immediately, I beg your pardon. Well, let's have a look and see what happens if he takes straight away. He played another move and then took the rook. But let's have a look. There are some beautiful variations, actually. So this is the problem, that the king is caught in the middle, but there are also a lot of weak points in the position, loose pieces. This is also loose, as we're about to discover. Now, if, for example, king here, there's a great move. You take this off. And, well, let me show you what I mean by the queen on a1 being loose. Basically, white has all the fun here. I mean, this is completely lost for black. But let me show you one beautiful forced variation. Now, when you take here, queen check, and the queen drops in the corner, this happens more than one variation. It's just incredible. For example, let's have a look at another one. Check. Okay, supposing pawn here. The point is the queen drops back now. Of course, the queen could have gone there straight away. This is a very nasty pin. But now we also have the f6 square available for the queen. This is the point of giving the check first. Let's have a very quick look. So the queen goes in. You can see basically this queen is out in Siberia. No chance of coming back to defend. And let me just show you one very nice variation. Here, you can give a check on d7. King has to take, and once again, the queen drops in the corner. It's very funny. Okay, lots of variations there, very complicated, but looks like it's winning for white. Okay, Anand played instead knight d4, and only in this position did he take the rook in the corner. I think, it's, as I said, it's very hard to compromise here. There are no safe continuations now for black. So Kasparov took. It's not quite as bad as the other position. At least this knight protects a few squares, but it's very, very unpleasant. Let me see. Let me show you what happens if we try and bring the queen back. Well, we give a check, and well, you just develop your pieces. Actually, it's just a terrible position. Here, and we give a check. The king goes. You can see that black's rook's completely split, and now actually it's very simple for white to win. The rook is hanging in the corner. We push the pawn, and it's all over. And yeah, don't forget this diagonal as well. King is in dreadful trouble, and there's no connection. This is black's problem. So, rook d8 played. And now another fantastic move by Kasparov. He was playing these moves instantly, still in preparation. I mean, you can imagine how disconcerting that would be for Anand. Let's see what happens if Anand gives back the queen. The problem is black's king is still under terrible attack. If this is taken, then it's mate straight away. So the queen comes back. This was the game. Kasparov took. Again, this will lead to checkmate after, and then queen f7. So Anand is struggling, has to bring the queen back to defend. And this was the first moment that Kasparov stopped to think. This is all preparation. Move 21, still in Kasparov's preparation. Now you have to remember, Kasparov was using a computer in his preparation. He did admit that after the game. But actually, it was very rudimentary software in those days. Certainly, you know, they weren't strong enough to beat the best human. But he was using it as a kind of spell checker. So basically, he used the computer to guide a little bit and to check. But this was still very human analysis. So it's a brilliant piece of preparation. Okay, they reached an endgame. I think, in many ways, this was an incredible achievement of Anand to reach this endgame where he's only a pawn down. And white still has to take care here. If, for example, you launch these pawns straight away, then this pawn comes down the board. White's a pawn up, but actually black's pieces are very well placed. The king in the middle, very nice, and these pawns come down the board, not so easy. So Kasparov fought for some time here to get it absolutely right. This is great technique. He stopped that c-pawn advancing first. Excellent move. And only then started pushing his pawn majority. So Anand is still trying to push his pawns. This is very important. Kasparov had time to bring his king into the middle of the board where it covers important squares, attacks the knight, and can support those pawns as well. And here another excellent move from Kasparov. Those pawns are looking dangerous, but after this, he snuffs out the trouble. For example, if that pawn advances, well, you can just attack it. And the rook can't come here because the knight is on prise. You can see how powerful that king is in the middle. Okay, a3 was played. Now Kasparov still has to be careful, but now he is free to advance his pawns. But this is a bit of brilliant technique from Kasparov. Okay, the king comes in the middle, and now we can take the pawn. Okay, it's all over. Let's just go through the final moves. Nice technique from Kasparov. If the rooks are exchanged, then the king comes back and just takes those pawns. So Anand avoided that, but now the pawns are just romping through. Let's just see the very end of the game. And in this position, actually, Anand resigned. The problem is that after this, for example, there's actually a mating net. And followed by, well, rook d8 mate is threatened. And, well, this is terrible. Basically, black can just about avoid mate, but white will take these pawns. So an extraordinary performance by Kasparov to level the scores after 10 games was 5-all. This was the halfway point of the match, but a terrible blow for Anand. And with hindsight, to play such a risky opening as the Open Spanish, I think Anand actually learnt a lot from this game. He rarely risked that kind of opening experiment again in his World Championship matches.